Let's talk today about when it may be a good idea to get rid of sugar on OMAD. Now, this is kind of controversial because a lot of people will go different ways. A lot of people are high carb OMADers. A lot of people, like myself, a lot of people are low carb, sometimes zero carb OMADers. And I maintain that there is no perfect way to eat. There is no right way to eat. You can't have it that way because people's bodies and minds are different and they respond to insulin and sugar differently. So I'm going to give you 3 tips that will make your use of sugar more meaningful, hopefully, and more helpful. So the first thing is to remember that if you are finding OMAD too difficult, it may be time to cut back the sugar. One way you know is by feeling a drug-like effect from your food. The more out of control you are at or after the meal, if you've eaten and it's a few hours later and you're automatically hungry again and you feel kind of ravenous, I liken it to being on a planet that is not fit for life. It's the temperature extremes are too much. It gets too hot and then too cold. So you start out the morning, it's 170 below, and by the afternoon it's 450. It's crazy. You couldn't live on a world like that. But the same, sugar's a drug, so it has the effect on the brain like a drug, just like cocaine or anything else, and it's going to give a release of chemicals. The higher your insulin spikes, the more you have a strong chemical reaction and a release. So if you're fine, but the negative side of that is that it leaves you lower than you found. And this is why I tell people when you start OMAD, get rid of anything you would not make a meal out of. And the reason for that is because you don't want to be consuming something that's just going to give you that roller coaster of insulin. So you eat a piece of cake, really tastes good. It gives you that snap, that mental, I'm connected with the world. This is a good, true moment. You can totally do that. But what you're going to have later is a little bit more difficulty in the fasting portion. So you have 2 choices. You can go through that. You can endure it. Or you can make it easier by eliminating anything the way you really should, that is straight sugar. Keep in mind, the higher calories you get from straight sugar, and the higher your insulin spike, the more prone your body is to store fat. So it wants to store fat more easily, even if your calories are still too low. So remember that. You're making your journey harder. Number 2, you are taking too long to get back into hunger high on a daily basis. Those of you who've done OMAD know the longer you do it, you start to get into hunger high. Your body digests your meal, and about 6 hours, 8 hours later, you're back into hunger high because you didn't take yourself out of ketosis. Remember, ketosis, light ketosis, like OMAD brings, keeps you in it. After a while, once you hit about 2 weeks, your body kind of keeps you in that state to where you're going to keep burning your own fat. But if you're regularly hitting yourself with masses of sugar, if you're eating fudge, my mother makes the best fudge, believe me. I know how it is. Guess what? You'll throw your body will get totally confused. So it's going to take 18 hours of your 24-hour fast or 23-hour fast to get back in. So the last 2 hours in the morning, you feel really good. But then all that time, you kind of feel murky and your brain is kind of, so-so. Maybe you have energy, maybe not, but you don't have very much. You don't want to do the normal activities. That's an indication that you're getting knocked out of hunger high and ketosis. As your ketosis peaks, you get into more hunger high. You get into more focus. You feel driven. You feel clear. If it's taking too long throughout the day to get back into hunger high, then you need to cut down on your sugar a little bit, because if you blast yourself with concentrated enough sugar, then you're going to make it harder for your body to burn off what you have and then to rely on your fat storage, which is of course what most of you want, especially those of you who are contacting me at 300 and 400 pounds. You do not want your body relying on what you eat. You want your what you eat to just hold you over and let your body work away on all the fat storage that you have, which you're doing, but you'll do it easier and you'll lose faster if you drop high dense sugars. What are high dense sugars? I'm talking about the high density sugars, of course, which are cakes, cookies, fudge. If you eat that with your meal, you can have it. You'll still lose weight, but you're going to make your journey a lot harder. You're going to make your weight loss slower, and you're going to make it to where you don't get the mental benefit of fasting. You don't get that super clear mind. When I started my OMAD during my loss phase, I stayed away from things that I could not make a meal out of. So an apple, an orange, of course, a steak and potatoes, rice, all of those things you can still make a meal out of, even though some of those have more sugar than others. But it's not so concentrated that your body cannot deal with it. Fudge is, cake is. It's going to hit you so hard that you're going to get the roller coaster. And when you get the roller coaster, oh, I feel great. Oh, I'm tired. I want to sit down. You're creating more problems for yourself. Number 3, it's time to cut back on sugar if you find you are having bigger mood swings. This is something that happens as your sugar tolerance drops as you age. Those of you who are younger will not relate to this because you have more beta cells, you have better insulin reception. So let's say somebody in high school pigs out on a cake. I used to do this. I used to eat 2/3 of a large cake pan. I could eat 2/3 in one sitting. I can't do that now. But if I did, I could finish out the day, just kind of, maybe I want to take a nap a little bit later. But then 30 minutes later, I'm good to go again. If you try that when you're older, you'll have to take a longer nap. You'll feel less productive. You'll get a headache. And then you will feel moody the rest of the day. And the reason is because your body has a harder time regulating the sugar that you take in as you get older. And that's why diabetics often find... I got a new Bun coffee maker, and I'm testing out the coffee, and I like it. I think it was worth spending the money on for the Bun versus the other cheaper brands on Amazon. But your insulin sensitivity begins to drop as you age, just a little. So that's why you have to be very careful. So those are 3 things. You are finding OMAD too difficult in terms of the hunger level. You are taking too long to get back into hunger high, and you are finding mood swings too wide. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't eat and then later get really depressed. You just shouldn't do that. If you are, you either haven't adapted, and that's a normal adaptation sign. So you're still adapting. If you're in the first 2 weeks to a month and you feel kind of moody, that's a normal blood sugar issue, but it usually resolves itself. But of course, what's the benefit of this? As you cut sugars, you find that the intensity of your meals decreases. So the next day comes around, you're not as ravenous. And not only that, when you eat, you feel more full and you don't feel as tired. You feel more clear-headed, you feel more optimistic, and your mood is better. That's a sugar resistance issue that you've solved. So, and you don't need all that stimulus to get throughout the day. Now, as a result of this, what you typically go through the stages of adaptation is that you rely more on stimulants to give you that. Your brain wants to have fake sugar. Your brain wants to have more caffeine. Both of those are okay as replacement addictions. You can have a replacement addiction. I've had people reach out to me who do shopping as a replacement addiction. They go out and they start shopping like crazy and spending money. You may have to watch that, but if you're just adapting initially, that's okay. Just, obviously you don't want to replace one addiction with another, or you're setting yourself back long term, even if you're getting ahead short term. But start using that as a crutch to kind of get back self-control, and then say, look, I don't need this. I believe in meditation every day, and I don't mean like, humming a funny chant meditation. I mean sitting in your room when you wake up with a beverage and just staring at the walls and appreciating a clear mind. Do that every morning. Do that every day. Give yourself 5 minutes of being alone with zero stimulus, not checking emails, not reading blog posts, or not reading text messages. Put your phone down and just sit there and vegetate. It's best if you can look at the sun or look toward the sun, open a window, and just have nothing else. Have 5 minutes every day, or 10 if you're really game, to where you do that. I know it sounds easy, but when you actually go to try it, you realize how fidgety we've become in today's world, and it's a lot harder to do. So if you get rid of the straight addicting sugars and you rely on normal sugars in your food, here's the last really big benefit. You find that your mind works better because now and your life works better because you can appreciate normal sugars. That's how I started loving strawberries and blueberries. I never loved them before OMAD, but at the end of my OMAD journey, since I had eliminated cake and fudge very often, I'd cut it down to maybe once or twice a month during my loss phase. I realized that strawberries tasted sweet, and blueberries and apples tasted super sweet. Grapes, I've always loved grapes, but those were the only ones. I usually didn't even eat those because I was such a horrible junk food eater. But I started to develop an appreciation for better foods. That's what leads to it. So for those of you who are trying to milk OMAD for all it's worth, why would you do it the harder way? Why would you try to make something more difficult when you could make it less difficult. Cut out the junk sugars, cut out the candy bars and cookies and cakes, except for maybe once a week, but after you've adapted. For those 2 weeks, try to rely on something like an apple, and if you don't like it, then do like I did, go meat and potatoes. My first OMAD meal was a double meat Whataburger. That was all, and so that's 830 calories, that's all I had. That was the first thing. It had nothing added, just pickles and tomatoes, and that's what kicked me into paying that hunger debt. I started to realize how much I craved sugar. Once you beat that craving, you will adapt super quickly. You will start to have a few days where you really, really struggle, and your body doesn't know what you're doing, but then it's going to normal out, and you're going to really enjoy your fasting journey. So if you're struggling with sugar addiction, get the hell rid of it. I mean, honestly, why are you going to make it harder for yourself? It just doesn't make sense. Do the thing that makes the most sense.